I'm Danny and I'm from New Zealand. Learnt to surf out at Muriwai and Maori Bay beaches and lots of big raw west coast storm swells and reforms and the long hard way on a short board for many years. I've been here on and off at different points in my life, but it was really love that brought me here at the start of 2011, and the previous year in 2010 I had quit my job at Billabong in New Zealand as a sales rep and hightailed over to the Maldives to work at a surf resort over there. And it was during that season that I met my now fiance, and he was spending time working in Australia and was based here in Byron, and then working on the surf charter boat for Liquid Destination over in the Maldives. So when we got together, he was back here for the summer and I just followed my heart, and he had ended up signing up for the 2011 season, so I joined him back on the boat later that year, and we just ended up bouncing between Byron and the Maldives and then Bali for a few years, and moved back here full time at the end of 2015. Maldives has had a huge role in Salt Gypsy in the course of my life since 2010, and it was really just a random meeting back in New Zealand of this couple who were surf guides at Loifushi in the Maldives, and we got along really well. They invited me to come and work with them, and I applied, got the job, and then so quit my time at Billabong and just hightailed it over there, and for the first time had of that season 7 months of concentrated warm water surf time and surfing really good waves consistently. Just completely changed my surfing and changed my life. I met Jade, and then the next 2 years after that we were operating these surf charters, and it was during that time that I was just surrounded by blokes all the time, which was great, but I really wanted to find a way to connect with other like-minded female surfers who were doing really cool, interesting travels. And around that time, 2011, 2012, blogs were really becoming quite popular, so that seemed like quite a good way to be able to just build this platform basically to talk story with other women and share their stories on the blog, and at the same time showcase some cool independent women's surf labels that had started to pop up at that time. And while I had access to being photographed when I was out surfing with the guests, Jade and I had to tag team shooting our guests. So if I was out surfing with a guest, Jade would be getting all these photos, and I was able to blog shots of me wearing some cool rashies and surf bikinis from some of these labels, and then do reviews on the Salt Gypsy blog. And so it was those kind of twofold components to the blog that kind of was the springboard for what Salt Gypsy has now become. So the blog through the 2012 season was really my way to stay connected to other ladies, as well as sharing my experiences wearing some cool gear that was quite hard to find. There were no platforms that existed to showcase these cool new indie labels, and so I'd kind of unwittingly been building this community through the blog and a Facebook page. And then through that 2012 season I needed some surf leggings for myself, because that was my third year working in the tropics, and you're just exposed to the elements all day every day for months on end. And I was just becoming increasingly conscious of sun damage and skin cancer, and although I'd found these cool brands making some cool rashies and bikinis, there was nothing for your legs. So I had a couple of pairs made up to my design on a visa run to Bali. Took those two leggings back to the Maldives, was wearing them in the surf, getting shots of them, and it was a swell of July 2012 that was massive, and it coincided with 2 other boatloads of women surfing around the Maldives in the same region at the same time, like unheard of. I was super excited because I had 2 ladies on my boat who were, well, not excited they were getting burnt, but of course we all know that's what happens when you go away on your tropical holidays. So I gave them my surf leggings to wear. I was like, try these and cover up your sunburnt legs. And it was these other boatloads of girls could see my ladies wearing the leggings, and they're like, oh, if Danny had any of those on board, she'd have sold out because we're all getting burnt. And so that was my aha moment when I heard that feedback was, okay, I think I might have a product here. And that was when my ex-Billabong sales rep days brain kicked in, and so it was the end of a few months later, finished up the season, and that had still stuck in my mind. But I had no money. I was on surf guide wages. We get paid in waves. So I was like, how do I launch this product but get funded first, basically? And so that's how the first iteration of customizable surf leggings came up. And I put it out there on the blog and Facebook page. I received about 20 orders for these colour by number panelled surf leggings, and that kind of kick-started. I was like, cool, well, people are interested, they want to buy these things, so yeah, we'll go for it. And full disclosure, I didn't start out with that in mind. So this was end of 2012, and I basically just needed to find a way to earn some money. Here was a product that I'd had a few orders for, and I just followed what I saw other people doing within garment manufacturing, and starting in Bali. It's a really great place to kickstart brands, especially these days. So yeah, I literally jumped on a scooter and drove around the streets of Denpasar and Kurabakan trying to hunt down like tailors, and then eventually small factories. And over the 2.5 years that I lived in Bali, I just gradually found bigger and bigger factories to cater to my small but growing order production quantities. And I was just sourcing local stretch fabrics. So I definitely didn't start out to have a sustainable brand. I think that's only really coming out within the last few years. But it was through that time, those 2.5 years in Bali, seeing firsthand the amount of pollution that's generated by the manufacturing industry, the types of fabrics that were available. I was thrown into the deep end and didn't really like what I saw. And in the end, 2015, I handbraked the business in order to restructure my supply chain and bring it more in line with my personal values. So I've been working really hard to really find ethical and fair trade manufacturing, cut and sew, and also what kind of sustainable textiles are out there. And in 2015, I was researching Kelly Slater's Out and Own brand, and was able, because they've been open source, as have Patagonia, who are like two hero brands, you're able to trace back to factories and then different textile suppliers. So yeah, I could find the fabric that we're now using was through that research in 2015. So at the moment we're just using the O'Connell stretch fabrics. There is another main source of a recycled plastic material that's called Reprieve, and that's I think coming from the States, but I could be wrong. I've just started looking into that, and there are other swim and surf brands who are using that particular regenerated yarn, but the one that I've chosen to use is O'Connell for the time being, and I just love it. Lasts 4 to 5 times longer. It's really helping do some kind of attempt to help reduce the amount of marine debris and ocean plastics, as well as diverting textile and carpet offcuts from landfills. So all this nylon waste is being regenerated. So when I handbraked the business in 2015, and I'd had a couple of events that happened within a week of each other that became a pivot point for the business. So I handbraked. I was like, yoink, I'm not getting the best quality product. What does that look like to me? Where do I get that made? And so by handbraking and slowing things down a bit, spending some time to do research on ethical manufacturing, sustainable textiles, and where to source all of these different things, and then how to put them together, I moved my partner and I back to Australia, and over that summer I spent time sampling with some crew up on the Gold Coast, as well as sampling with producers over in China. And I was trying to work with a production consultant to get into China factory, but it just didn't work out and fell through at the last minute. But because I'd been sampling with the Gold Coast crew, I had a ready-made production order and they were familiar with my style. So it was partly by design and partly by default that I ended up working with the Australian crew. But I've just loved being able to drive up the highway and speak to the people in person any day of the week. And so the communication's great. The machinists that work in these boutique production houses in Queensland are just so experts at what they do, and yeah, it's just fast turnaround, and yeah, it's great. I really enjoy Australian manufacturing for many reasons, but yeah, it's cool. Definitely a relief to be able to whiz up the road whenever you need to. So setting up Seabones was in partnership with my good friend Ming, who's a local fashion surf photographer here in Byron, and we really wanted to create a space that was welcoming and inviting for women to feel comfortable shopping all sorts of different products around coastal lifestyle. Most of the brands we have in store are all local based, and of that we're predominantly all women owned and operated businesses, so that's partly by default, that's just our jam. Like, we just love working with other women, and there's such a great talent pool. So yeah, we wanted to have a space where independent labels who otherwise would struggle to have a retail presence, to have a space for us collectively. So that's how that came about. Women's board range with the GSI crew has been just such an amazing opportunity, and I just received an email pretty randomly one day about a year ago and spoke to Mark Kelly, and yeah, it was just really cool to see someone have a vision of this opportunity that exists for everyday female surfers, that aligned with, you know, what I would love to see in women's surf industry and surf culture. And yeah, it's been really exciting to launch the boards a couple of months ago, and yeah, super cool. The different board models that we wanted to offer, so we have a twin fin, a mid-length and a long board, and there's also a stand-up paddle board for women who enjoy flat water paddling, but it's also, you cross over into surf stand-up paddling, which I tried and was quite difficult, but yeah, I think it's a good kind of cross-training addition for the range. And yeah, we just really felt like there was such a gap for women like myself and my friends who aren't necessarily competitive whippersnapper shortboard crew, but like to try different range of boards to suit different conditions for our backyards that we surf every day. So I hope we've covered that with the 3 board models, and all the colours that we came up with all tie back into our Salt Gypsy range, so of surf garments. So yeah, definitely with the view in mind of like looking cool in the lineup with a rad fun board that you'll take care of and hand down hopefully to your daughter or nieces. Design wise, we worked with Richie Lovett on the technical specs of the boards, because that's definitely not my area of expertise. And yeah, I was glad that we were all thinking on the same page of the 3 models, so that was rad. And then we've just kind of shifted some volume allocations for each model. So I've been finding them personally really easy for paddling. The twin fin, which is my personal favourite, just takes off under your feet, which is rad, so you can easily generate lots of speed down the line. And then yeah, they're just super fun. And yeah, so we were quite involved with the design process, and obviously lent our branding and brand aesthetic to the range as well. Creative collaboration's part of my core business values, and I definitely am always on the lookout for cool things that I personally would love to see designed better, or designed in a cool or different way. We also have a collaboration with an Australian USA brand brand. So we're working with the Australian sister brand of the US Crew, Aloha Collection, and they make splash-proof bags, which I use every single day for the last 4 or 5 years. The Epic. So we've had some design collaboration with those ladies, and then just working with some print designers. Most recently, we've got actually a new collaboration coming out next month, and that's with some friends back in New Zealand, and working with an eco Airbnb over in New Zealand, and work with a New Zealand print and textile designer to come up with the print for that particular collab. So yeah, I would much prefer to work with really cool people and really push the boundaries of what constitutes women's surf products or lifestyle products, and just bring out some cool stuff. Yeah. So we're predominantly selling through our online channel, and I've been direct to consumer right from the get-go. I had, from my Billabong days, working as a sales rep in New Zealand through the GFC, I could see how hard it was for retailers, and that was around the time online shopping was starting to become quite a main channel for selling through. So I knew that when I had my surf leggings ready to go, I knew I had to be straight through the blog and Facebook page direct. And so I've worked really hard over the last 7 years to build an online business, and currently 3/4 of our business is online and 1/4 is for wholesale. And with my production currently in Australia, wholesale is just not a viable business model. So we're very reliant on our online store sales, but also work hard to try and have really great customer service and minimize returns and exchanges, which can often can blow out of company budgets and things like that in terms of costs of freight and things. So yeah, we work really hard to try and help women with our sizing. Having our Seabone store is awesome. We can talk to people in real life and either sell through Seabones or our online shop. So yeah, online's definitely how I've been able to survive as a small business for the last 7 years. Oh man, where do I start? So I still wear a lot of the hats, and have worn all of the hats up until I had my baby and had to hire my first assistant, Carly, who's just been amazing. So she works with me part-time, and then we have a part-time freelance girl down in Sydney who's monitoring and creating all our Facebook ads and doing some content creation for us. So it's just us three and my accountant crew and that's pretty much it. And then for Seabones we have like some in-store team members and who are great. The advice that I would have for new brands starting out is nail a really good campaign shoot, and if you can, kind of map that out on Instagram, do a bit of planning. Otherwise, just go for it and get started. I think these days you definitely need to have some really great engagement with your audience and customer base and community. That's something I've tried to do, possibly not very well. I can always improve, but I've always been open and inviting feedback on new styles that we might be releasing. Earlier this year we gave out 3 samples to 3 different women via running a thing on Instagram, just to try and get some great engagement and get like actual people trying on our samples and then giving us feedback so we can make tweaks to our production. And that was amazing and super fun for everyone. And yeah, so I think if you can find different ways to kind of humanize the social media aspect and have some direct engagement, then that can really build you for some great success. Our growth and scaling our growth, so that's our current big challenge. I'm still working a lot of the time on pre-orders to help fund our production. We're constantly doing back-to-back production runs because we can't keep up with demand. So we have a great problem, but it's still a problem, and just lacking big chunks of capital to really invest into inventory has been my biggest challenge. I think, if anything, like, I'm just a normal, everyday female surfer who needed something for myself and couldn't find it, so made some and keep talking to my friends and network and community, and each production we do, it's getting better and better, and I try to be as open and honest as I can about everything that we do with the small business, and yeah, I'm not just here to have the world's biggest, best surf brand. Like, I want to be able to use this business to support my ocean women community around the world, and that's from grassroots levels, ideally, ultimately, one day be able to support competitive athletes, and yeah, I don't know what makes us so unique in that way. That's all I can think of, is that I am my customer. Like, I'm just want to make cool products and help women feel awesome in the lineup and feel equitable, and stoked that they're wearing something that has some value to them in terms of environmental and social impact. And
well, thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate you having a chat with us at ASB, and we look forward to finding out all the amazing things you get up to in the future.
oh, thank you so much, guys. Yeah, I feel really honoured to be a part of this, so thank you, and super excited to see the other women in business as well.